Hi everybody, welcome to the channel. So today's job, quite an interesting one. We're going to be putting a Gwyn Lewis diff pan, I suppose it's called, on the front of this Series 3 Land Rover axle. Now the fact it's a Series 3 doesn't actually matter because I think this video should be relevant from Series 1 all the way up to the last of the real Defenders and Range Rover up until Disco 1, possibly 2. So let's get straight into it. Now, this is how it comes out of the box from the supplier. It's actually really nice quality, so if you're worried about that at all, forget about it. These things are absolutely stonkingly well built, but as you can see, when they turn up in the box, they look like this. They are just tacked together, ready for you to weld up. So now we've got it out of the box, the first job is to weld everything together on the cover itself. We don't need the axle casing yet. Now the instructions say weld up the outside of the casing first and then turn it over and do the inside. I think the idea is so when you pull it one way, when you weld the outside, you pull it back again when you do the inside. But to be honest, if you had to fettle it up a little bit to make it sit flat afterwards, I really don't think it'd be the end of the world. So that's what I've done just here. If you're interested, I used a Lincoln 175 MIG plant on point. This is actually on 0.6 wire. I didn't want to change the wire because, to be honest, I couldn't be bothered, and it welded together really nicely. So that's all done. Next step. Now we've got the axle on the bench. As you can see, we've got the pan pointing upwards. Now the next step is as simple as take an angle grinder with a 1mm cutting disc and cut the pan off. It amazed me how easy that was. I expected it putting up a fight. I had it off in well less than a minute. So that's fine. Once you've got that off, then you're going to need a flat wheel or a linishing disc to take it the rest of the way down. And make sure you grind all the way out, because this the new pan that's going on is quite a bit bigger, specifically wider than the original Land Rover one. So take it all the way out to the edges. And then we should be ready to start welding it. Now I've got it on the bench and on top of the axle casing, you can see how much bigger this this diff pan is than the original. It also, as well as being taller and wider, sticks out a good way further. There were no measurements or instructions on how to get it on there, so I literally eyeballed it. So once I'd eyeballed it into place, as you can see here, it was just a case of tack all of the points on the pan down to the axle, and then run a weld round it. I didn't actually people will say that you have to sort of wait or cool down each one or do it in stages. To be honest, I didn't do that. I just welded it on. Nothing seemed to move, you know. So you can, if you want, you can do it in sections, but I didn't bother, and it didn't seem to have any adverse effects. So let's move on to the next bit. And here's the finished article. So as you can see here, I just welded my initials into it. This Land Rover I intend keeping forever. So if anybody ever steals it, you're going to have to go around with the angle grinder, because anything I could weld my initials into, I did. And after that, I gave it a coat of, I think it was U-POL Power Can etch primer, and then a coat of black hammerite. Looks really good. It was a really easy thing to do. If you can weld, it's not a difficult job. Looks way worse than it is. It took me about an hour, realistically. And that included everything as well, cutting everything up, prepping it, and then doing all the welding to the pan and welding it down to the axle. Really wasn't a big job. Obviously, I had the axle off the truck at this point. I think you could probably do it with it on, with the axle in. It'd be a lot easier on a ramp, and I'd say you'd be really careful around the diff as well, because you're going to fill the axle casing with a lot of iron filings. But I guess if you were really desperate to do it, it could be done. And then that's it. So thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, that's how you put a diff pan onto a Land Rover axle.